I 100% believe that it's not what they. I have to be so careful when I say this. And people will roll their eyes when I say no. Like if you look at the way Building 7 fell, buildings don't fall that way, and what they're telling us isn't the whole truth. Why are there only like 1 or 2 crappy camera views of the plane hitting the Pentagon? This was the Pentagon. Wasn't there 100 cameras? Why are those the only 2 that...
Are you saying that it was a missile that hit it?
I don't know what it was, man.
Yeah, we went on a big road trip this morning. I was up there like freaking 4 a.m. We drove to Karchner's Cavern and did a cavern tour there.
I don't even know where that's at.
It's in by Tucson, like between Tucson and Tombstone. And then it was a long drive. It was like almost 3 hours to get there, 2.5 hours.
Dude, I hate driving to Tucson. I hate it.
Yeah. No, but it was cool. It's a big old cavern. You go down and you see these stalagmites and stamagmites or whatever.
Right.
And it's pretty cool. I liked it a lot. It was pretty cool.
What made you want to do that?
I've just always wanted to do that. When we were kids, my dad took us to Carlsbad Cavern in New Mexico. It was a big ass cave. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, I want to take my kids there. So I signed up. I signed up for it because you had to do it like a couple weeks in advance because they're always booked. When it first opened, you had to do it months in advance, but I was able to get in 2 weeks in advance.
Nice. Who all went?
But me and the 2 little kids and the wife.
Nice.
Then we went to Tombstone. We did our Old West picture. Dude, it was fucking disgusting. Like I put, everything just ties in the back so it looks like a suit or what, I put on the big trench coat, but the pants even are just all, has a big V in the butt area. So you just climb in there and put them in there and tie it. But they put the vest thing on, which is all one piece. And I could smell the BO from whoever fucking wore that 100 times before me. I was like, fuck, man, you guys don't wash this shit. Fuck. And I'm all trying to hold my throat up in. Oh, God damn it. I hated it. And I even felt it like the last guy that wore it was sweaty. So I don't know. It was still a little damp from the guy who wore it sweaty before. So fucking annoying.
There's so much dead skin on that. Like, that would drive me nuts.
No, serious. I will throw up. Because, the collar, the white collar, it was all like yellowish brown from all the
dude, at least it fit the times, right? Like
yeah, imagine it probably smelled like roses compared to the time, right?
Dude, so 9/11, man.
What do you think? Okay. When you were Googling your stuff, were you Googling it with which mindset? Or were you trying to be a little bit, in the middle?
No, dude. So I 100% believe that it's not what they. I have to be so careful when I say this. I was talking to Kim about it and how like you can sound like a crazy person, like you're one of these conspiracy
like
theorists.
Somebody who believes in Bigfoot or something.
I know,
right?
exactly, right? But it's like, well, no, if you really look at like, and it sounds, and people will roll their eyes when I say no, like if you look at the way Building 7 fell, buildings don't fall that way. And I was explaining it to Kim and she was trying not to roll her eyes, I could tell. And I have to attack in a certain way when I'm talking to her about it to not like be too overbearing and be like, what are you crazy? Why don't you see this?
Or she's like, what did I do? Who did I marry?
Exactly. But dude, I firmly believe, man, like there's so many things that don't make sense. And like once you look at the details and for all 3 of these buildings to fall the way that they fell which is such like, that's such a big thing, man. I even heard, here's this documentary. It sucks. It's on Pluto TV. Have you ever watched Pluto TV?
I've seen it, but I have not watched it now.
It actually is pretty cool, man. Like it's totally free and you could just like watch a ton of streaming stuff like on demand and also live TV. But there's this documentary that was on Netflix and I think it jumped on all of them and now it's on Pluto TV.
Right.
But it's called 9/11 Explosive Evidence. And it talks about these like 1,300 structural engineers who sign on to like force NIST, this National Institute for, I don't even know what it's called. National Institute, my notes, I didn't get them in order. National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're the ones that actually said, "Hey, no, this building fell the way that it was supposed to fall. Like, this is why it fell." And so all these engineers like looked at it and said, "Well, this isn't like NIST. This isn't right. Like, you left out all this evidence. Like, your computer models don't make sense. It doesn't match the data." And so they like signed on and said, "Hey, like, you need to review it, 100%." And NIST was like, "No, we're not going to do that." Which is just it's weird. And so, dude, this documentary goes through all of these things, and it's not poorly made. It's just super low budget. It's like you could tell the dude, whoever did it, is using like Adobe Premiere Pro, which is what we use here, And like the animations come across the screen, and you're like, "Oh, I've seen that. Like that's free,
Yeah.
But dude, like the temperatures don't make sense, man. Like even if you look at even with the towers, because people always talk about, oh, this plane struck the towers. Like, of course it's going to cause all this damage,
right?
But dude, there was like people talked about bombs going off. They like there was these first responders who came into the lobby of like Tower 1, Tower 2, right? They're coming in, they're going up all these flights of stairs. Out of nowhere, boom! Like their rocked staircases are no longer there. They have to crawl out. They eventually make it back out of the lobby, and they're like, it's like a bomb went off. They walked in, it was a pristine lobby. And as the tower's still standing, and now they're like, things are hanging from the ceiling. They're like, a bomb went off in here, and that's what damaged the stairwells. And it's more than one. And it just, dude, there's like a list of things of like there's molten steel. Go ahead.
Did you see I've seen, like I did a lot of listening and watching too, but I saw that, when that first plane hit, all the jet fuel went straight down that elevator shaft, right? Did you see that? And people were getting burned by the jet fuel in there.
I did, yeah.
I mean, to me too, I mean, a lot of that stuff's kind of explainable. I mean, to me, I would imagine there's things that could pop or blow or explode in a building, even if it's, maybe it could be the gas that's evaporating in the elevator shaft, or compressed air lines that get heated up and blow. I mean, that stuff. I mean, it's kind of normal stuff that blow.
Yeah, but that's not like C4 grade or like whatever's gonna take a building down the way that it went down.
Well, I don't think that's
what.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's what caused those explosions. Whatever, the building didn't go down right after those explosions, right? After those things they heard, it was several minutes later, right? Like they were saying that, like I had seen or watch it, like eyewitness accounts saying that the North Tower, that was, or the South, the North one got hit second.
I don't know.
Well, the one that got hit second.
I think that was Tower 2, and it fell first too, right?
Yes, and it got hit. It fell first, but it hit it lower, right? And they were saying that if you look closely, that it was actually the top of the tower was almost leaning, and the metal was bowing. But like for temperature wise, like I keep hearing the jet fuel doesn't burn that hot.
And it was gone in minutes. All of the jet fuel was burned up within 2 minutes. So now you're just normal office furniture, and the building burning, and the building has been treated to not, like, it's designed not to burn. And so what's burning is desk, chairs.
Did you see that the insulation on those beams was only like half an inch thick or an inch and a half thick, and they were half an inch thick, and they got audited to upgrade the insulation, the fireproof insulation, and they only did 30% of the building.
Really?
Yeah, and that they were saying that the jet fuel was just an igniter. It wasn't the actual jet, but I mean, everything burns. I mean, if you think about the walls, everything gets hot, Chris. Everything gets super, super hot. And if you think about it, even when the building was collapsed on itself after it fell, I mean, it's molded for months, right? Or weeks, several weeks. It just molded under all that rubble. I mean, that shit burns. Things burn. I don't know if an explosion would cause a deeper burn, or I'm not sure. Like when they demolish buildings properly with dynamite and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
they don't continue to burn and smolder for forever. I don't think,
Right. So that I know with Building 7, man, they had found. So well, let me back up. One of the weird things is when there's like if a building was to just collapse, there's rules and laws and like these standards that all of these like groups come in and say, okay, we got to study, we got to figure out why this fell, we got to understand this. And almost like a plane wreckage, right? Like they take all the plane parts when it crashes and they pretty much put the plane back together as best they can to try to understand like where the failure happened and how they can fix it.
right.
They started selling all of the scrap metal like 2 weeks after the towers fell. Like there was no going back and looking at it.
Right.
They were able to get a hold of some of the steel from Building 7, and it was like warped and melted, and they're like, this doesn't, you only get this with thermite. You don't get this with normal office fires. And there's, dude, a number of occurrences of where like entire buildings burned, right? I think in 1996 or 1992, like in the 90s at some time, there was a bank that just like almost burnt, like everything burned. It was a giant raging fire. Still standing, only affected like 5 floors. There's other structures in other countries where the whole thing burns up, and it's just a wire frame now, steel. That's all that's left,
Right.
and it didn't collapse.
But if you think kind of logically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. I mean, there's throw the jet fuel caused the fire. Everything's burning in there. Then you get the impact of the airplane alone. Yeah, I mean, that's not causing structural damage. That's not, a plane hitting a building is not causing any structural damage. I mean, like, it's never really, it hasn't been tested. I mean, the Titanic was supposed to be unsinkable and it sunk, you know what I mean? And they did all these tests and, said it was never going to sink. The same thing with these buildings. They're saying it was supposed to withstand not a 747, but a smaller plane. That was one of the bigger planes back when the buildings were built, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But to me, like if you look at that gouge in that building from this, especially the second plane, it was a huge gouge tear. You know what I mean? And they were saying that the walls of the building itself, all the 4 walls, is what helped the building stand up.
Sure,
so now you got only 3 walls holding up that building, plus the impact from the plane that messed up the structure, and the fire. I think the conspiracy theorists really point towards the fire a lot, saying, hey, fire can't do this to metal or whatever. But everything's compromised at that point. You know what I mean? Everything is...
Yeah, but it doesn't
it's
fall
severely
the way it's
compromised.
supposed to fall, right? I mean, dude, there's, and I have some videos that I want to play for you, but it doesn't fall the way that it's supposed to fall, right? And for 3 buildings to fall the way that they did, as if there's nothing underneath them, right? I mean, they were coming straight down, boom, right? And that means there's no force, right? I mean, everything has to fail at the exact same time, and for everything just to come straight down. Otherwise, if the right side doesn't come down, it's going to start to lean to the right, or actually lean to the left, right? And it's just going to topple over.
Yeah, you think it would stay together like a tree would stay together? Like, I've never seen a building tip over. I mean, there's no evidence that a building, like, we see it on Superman versus Batman or Man of Steel, where or Transformers, where these buildings fall over and land on these other buildings and they stay intact. But that's movies. But I mean, there's no evidence of ever a building staying together and intact because when they fell.
When they demolish it, they do it in a way where they, like, it has to be a planned demolition, right? Where you remove the center support, and then you remove, like, and it all has to be at the same time, a timed explosion for this thing to fall on itself. And it's not just one explosion, man.
Right.
Even in some of the videos, which I don't have a clip of this, but it talks about how in slow motion you can see these giant I-beams that flew like 2 blocks, right? I mean, these things are 1,000 pounds or something. And the fact that they were ejected as far as they could, people are like, oh, it could have been the air pressure, the floors collapsing on each other. And these guys are like,
broken a stick and a piece of stick goes flying because of just the pressure alone.
But it doesn't,
like if you snap something and it just flies I mean, to me, it makes sense that if it's going and things are bowing and then all of a sudden it just pushes out.
The way, I mean, dude, obviously I'm putting faith in these guys that I'm watching,
right?
These structural engineers. Much like when I go to a doctor, I'm going to believe whatever my doctor says. It's how humans work. Okay, you're educated. Right. I'm going to believe you. And they're just like, this guy was saying people will throw out all these theories about why it should do it. And they're like, but physics doesn't lie. He's like, it doesn't fly that far. Something has to push it that far. And it's not, that's not going to happen when it's, and dude, it's all of this like perfect storm, right? This thing is coming straight down. You see these, ejection gases coming out or where these explosions are happening. The fact that you can see molten steel dripping out of the building means that something like office fires aren't going to do that. Even burning jet fuel is not going to create.
I watched a lot of videos. I didn't see molten steel, like melting steel coming out. I mean, I don't know. I know that. Like I know that. Like listen, I was pretty much on board of this conspiracy thing when I first started, and I kind of got way away from it if it's not obvious. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I don't know. I was listening to calls they were playing calls over, the firemen's radios were broke. I was like, they couldn't penetrate the walls and the steel and whatever of the building. There was a guy early on, right after the second airplane crashed, that was saying, hey, you need to pull them out now because this building's gonna fall. And it was a structural engineer guy saying, no, this is happening. It's falling. He was saying the fire isn't the issue. It's a structural problem right now at this point. And he was trying to warn everybody, and they couldn't get a hold of the firemen up there because the radios weren't reaching up there. It was just, to me, I think it was a perfect shitstorm. You know what I mean? Where like New York, they weren't prepared enough. I mean, nobody was prepared enough for this. I mean, after this incident, training across America has gone out on how to react during crazy things like this. You know what I mean? Like the unthinkable things. And I just think they were underprepared. They're underfunded. They're saying that they were trying to get those radios replaced years ago. They had old technology for this that didn't even work in the building. By the end of this, I thought it was just incompetence almost, and not incompetence where maybe whoever might be in charge, not the guys going up there trying to save people. That's what they're doing. You know what I mean? But
sure,
not organizing this better. Which how do you it? But I can't. Not that I can never do any better in this situation, but I just felt like it was pretty unorganized and bad communication, and I truly believe the building fell. To me, I look at it as it collapsed from the top down, and you can see it fall. And I see what I'm looking at when I watch these videos is that the top falls. The top and it goes all the way down. Like if you get something that's a gap this big, and this whole structure of this. And I think that's why the second building fell, because because it was heavier up top. So
sure.
You had more upper building to land and just collapse everything down. And I think that's how it would happen. I would say, yeah, I mean, I'm not a physicist, I guess. I know I'm not a physicist, but there's no other example of this. I mean, we have only planned demolished buildings that are a fraction of this. No one's ever demolished a building. Those are the two tallest buildings in the world at that time. No one's ever demolished a building that big. There always been buildings a fraction of that size. You know what I mean? No one knows how that happens.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, dude, let me play something for you real quick. So there's. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of videos here. Most of them are all on
Bring 'em.
Building 7. But here's this one guy talking about the explosions he heard.
Like boom! It's like a distinct sound. It's not like when in compression, like boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something.
Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. I'm okay, all right? Here, hold on. You want to call your mother or something?
Can I tell you something real quick? Have you ever been around a burning car? A car that's on fire?
No.
All right. When the tires blow, you think you're dying. It's so fucking loud, and it sounds just like that. And I'm not lying. I've been around 2 cars. We had a car on fire in our at my work, and I'm ERT, so we're there. When those tires blow, there was 4 explosions, and they are so loud, Chris. And I thought the first one, I thought, oh God, I'm dead. This is it. I'm dying. I don't know what's on. I don't know. I don't know how something caught on fire at my work and things are exploding in there. But that's how loud it was. It was so loud, and that's almost what it sounded like to me, that last video of the explosion. If you think about a car on fire, I mean, I'm assuming there's plenty of things on fire around the building as well after that. You know what I mean? Like if it's a car on fire or things that are on fire, those tires exploding are so ridiculous. And it's loud, and you feel it in your chest. It's so loud. It's such a boom.
Dude, that makes sense. I remember being, I was like, 10 or 12. We're at the old 5th Place address. We're in your driveway, and we're like pumping up a tire,
right?
Like a bike tire,
just a bike tire, right?
Yeah, just and it's just a freestanding inner tube, and we're doing it.
Yeah,
and we overinflated it. We're going to see what happens when it pops. And I remember when it popped, thinking, "Oh no, I'm in trouble!" Like,
yeah, that was so loud. And that's
yeah.
just the tube. Think about how much more pressure needs to build up to blow up through the rubber, the tire, and everything.
Right.
And plus, I'm telling you, Chris, it is so loud, and I was talking to the firemen, like we're hardly fazed by it because they were there, and he goes, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time." I mean, he's like, I was waiting for your guys' reaction when this was gonna blow. You know what I mean? Because we were in a safe we were safe. We were 30, 40 yards away from the fire, and it felt like I was getting shot. I thought someone shot. I mean, Chris, it was louder than if I'm not wearing earplugs and you're shooting my 12 gauge next to me. I mean,
really?
It was way, way, way louder than that. It was an explosion. It was a huge explosion. But that's what I'm saying. That's what compressed air can do. That's what anything like if you think about any kind of compressed anything, I mean, it could be anything like that can just explode and make a huge, huge explosion. And in that huge building, there's got to be stuff in there that have compressed air, or maybe they had propane tanks in some of the, for some reason. I don't know.
Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, we don't know what it's like to have super tall buildings, but I know, like, they have to have like water towers and like there's ways to get services up. Once you're on the 12th floor, how does water get up there? It's got to be compressed, or they have to, like, it's stuff that we don't even know about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just, that was one clip. I couldn't spend 4 days getting all of these clips and everything. And so
right.
There were so many people that talked about these explosions that happened. And then these first responders, right, who are going in and then they're like, we walked in, this was a pristine lobby, and going up multiple floors and going into each floor and seeing that, it's dark, but it's like, no one's on this floor. It's fine. It looks okay. And then suddenly, boom, something happens, and then everything is just a mess. And it's like a bomb went off in here, and now this floor is ruined. And it's like, what the heck happened? They're breathing the air. They're not passing out. There was no fire. It wasn't like they were.
Right.
It was explosive gas. So it's something happened. Could it have been some kind of compressor that was in the elevator shaft that finally blew? For sure.
It could have been that, or it could have. Like, they were saying that there was, like, even the first responders, the firemen that were in the building, even after the building fell, even after everything, they never knew what the fuck was going on. They never knew that a plane caused it. They never knew that, they didn't even know that both towers were hit. They didn't know, even after the buildings fell and they were out and some of them survived, they had no clue what had happened. So all these eyewitnesses of things happening, I'm sure they didn't know what was happening as well. You know what I mean? Like these people that were in the building, that guy that said, he was on the whatever floor, and then everything was, he was blowing it back by, it could have been the other building falling for all he knew. You know what I mean? It could have been it could have been anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't.
In a crisis like that, it's hard to go by what witnesses say. You know what I mean?
Dude,
we
for
have
sure,
actual
100%,
cameras, and there's a million cameras on these buildings. You know, we've seen the planes crashing into it. We see what's happening from the outside, but the people that are actually in the building, who are in the turmoil, who don't even know what the hell's going on, to me, that's I think the more clear evidence is us. We were up together at the same time when the plane. Were we talking on the phone when that second plane hit the tower, or
I think
was I talking to my mom? I don't remember.
No, because I was at work, and then I was working.
Oh, you had to
Intel.
work that day?
Yeah, I was already at work, and then it started happening, right? I think it started happening, I don't know, like about the time we started work, 6 or 7 in the morning our time, and then dude, I don't know.
I was off. My mom had called me, and I'd woke up and I'd turned the TV on, and literally like second I turned the TV on, that other plane hit the tower. I'm like, what the fuck's happening? Yeah, it was crazy.
I feel like maybe I saw the second one hit. I think at work they brought us all in, and we were just like watching TVs, and then eventually they were just like, well, I guess we're gonna send everyone home. Like we don't know what to do. And
right.
I don't know. I think I went to your house. Maybe
you
that
did.
Day.
I think you came over later. I thought you were, for some reason, I thought you were working with me at that time. Yeah, at Freescale.
No, I was with that auditing company.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, dude, here's another one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. All right, so this one they're talking about these ladies came, they like the first plane hit, and then they're like making their way down the stairs, and the lobby, which is probably 80 floors lower than where the plane hit, or 50 floors lower than where the plane hit. Like they talk about how it looked like a bomb went off in there.
Yeah, that was from the jet fuel going all the way down the shaft as well. That's when they talked about that too, about that explosion. But go ahead, sorry.
In the first building and escaped through the lobby, where they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run.
And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds in the first plane.
So, and dude, while we're at it, so like I'll play one more for you, but it's like all of this collectively together to me means something's up, man. I just can't see. I mean, sure, if you're gonna have jet fuel come pouring down, and I get that it's probably thousands of gallons, but for
they were fully loaded planes. They had just taken off. They were going across country. They were 18 minutes into their flight and turned around and hit the building. I mean, like they were fully filled up planes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
all right.
To me, but go again.
I just can't see. So, dude, this is the one thing, and I've
give it to me.
All of my other videos are about Building 7, and actually this one is too. But it's the symmetry of it, right? Like that's how this lady talks about it, and how you can't. Like it's just not possible. It's not possible. And for it to happen 3 times for this to happen, for them just to come crashing down on themselves. All right, here we go.
The symmetry is the smoking gun. It cannot happen that when you have asymmetric damage, you will get a perfectly symmetrical collapse.
I worked for Controlled Demolition Incorporated, CDI, the top-rated explosives demolition firm in the world. As an explosives loader, my job was to place explosives in the buildings to prepare them for demolition. I was licensed while in New York by the New York Fire Department to handle explosives. What I saw, it was a classic implosion. The center of the core, the penthouse area, starts to move first, and then the building follows along with it.
Do you notice they're only showing the good side of the building? Like it's the side that's, dude. They said that building had a quarter. Where do I have that in my notes? They had that building had a quarter of the building structural damage. It was structurally damaged by a quarter of it, and then on top of that, they have backup diesel generators that also caught on fire during that. You know what I mean? So like it all makes sense with what people how people are explaining that this happens that aren't conspiracy theorists. You know what I mean? Like they because I was all on board on that Tower 7. I'm like, oh, how did this happen? And then this guy was saying how there's like a Hyatt or a hotel that was right next to it that got fucked up also. Like, but that didn't fall down. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was like, yeah, that's true. How come that didn't fall down? But
that building was also, I think that hotel is like 20 stories tall, whereas all of the other ones, I think, I don't know, building 7 was like 40 or 60. Nothing as tall as the towers, right? Those towers were 110. So, yeah, but dude, so go ahead.
But you know what kicked off this whole conspiracy thing, right? It was the owner of that building 7, and he was quoted as saying, "Pull it," and they were saying that means that's what kicked off all the conspiracy theorists, because like he was saying he was heard saying pull it, and they were saying, see, he gave the order to pull it and knock the building down. Well, really, he was talking to the police chief or the fire chief, and he was saying, and he even clarified later on that he was saying, yeah, when I said pull it, I meant pull the firemen out, give up on the building, it's going down. You know what I mean? They were already giving up on that building because that's what was happening, and that's actually a common phrase.
So I'm gonna play one other thing for you.
But you saw that. Why? Dude, that whole third of the building in front where you can't see, because you see the perfectly part of the building that's not damaged at all.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
The part that's actually destroyed is the part that caved down first. That's what you saw coming down is the broken part.
Right.
And then the rest followed it.
But then
why would it tilt? Why? I don't understand. Because you have a square-ass building.
The whole right side is not damaged. No, I said that's what you would, because if you have, dude, and so they talked about that, right? And that's why that lady was saying,
like a tree where you chop down a tree.
If you have asymmetrical damage, you're not going to have a symmetrical collapse, right? Because things are going to be in its way.
That's if you're talking about something that's solid and won't. Yeah, I mean, like a tree. You chop a tree and it's going to tilt over and fall down. You know, okay, that makes sense because that tree's not going to collapse on itself. A building will. You know what I mean? It like anything that you build up it's not gonna bend. It's not going to
come straight down, man. I'm not saying that it's gonna like tilt over and lean, right? I'm saying that it's gonna crumble like that.
Did you see that video of that? What recently in Florida that it was like an apartment building that collapsed. Okay, we should have pulled that up. It was a condemned building that they were going to condemn it, and like there was evidence everywhere that this thing was going to fall and collapse, structural damage, and then a lot of people died.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and all of a sudden it fucking collapsed. Yeah, I mean, like it collapsed as well. You know what I mean?
I wonder how it collapsed.
Yeah,
I mean, dude. I mean, there's bombs that go off, right? That whole, was it Timothy McVeigh, that thing that happened in the early 90s,
Oklahoma,
like in Kansas
City.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that building was just half gone, right? Still half standing. That's what I expect to see.
Because the explosion was on the outside, Chris. So it was an outside explosion going in. You know what I mean? So the van or whatever he had full of manure and bomb making material was on the outside, and it just kind of blew out.
Right, but if you have steel beams that are damaged and they collapse, and you have these other steel beams that are still structurally sound, that's what happens.
Right.
Half the building stays up. That's not what we saw there with Building 7.
But
you
that
have
Oklahoma
this one
City
lower
bombing,
left-hand corner. Go ahead.
That building was a fraction of the size of that. It wasn't and I don't believe it was a steel beam building as well. I could be wrong, but I believe it was like a big brick building, cement building, not built with steel beam supports like the Twin Towers were.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I could be wrong on that, but I remember I don't remember them being beams anywhere in there during that explosion, but it was a fraction of the height too. It was a fraction of the height.
It was like
World Trade 7. No, it wasn't that big.
You don't think it was? All right.
It was a big building, but it wasn't that big.
Here's one more talking about it.
Of how the building failed, and when you look at the animation of the failure, and compare that to what you actually observe in reality, I think they disprove their own theories.
What we see on the real video is not a natural collapse.
So are they saying that only half the building should have fell?
They're saying that it doesn't add up. What NIST is saying, and that was NIST's, graphic on the right, like their model that only runs, it doesn't follow the entire collapse. And these guys break it down, and they're saying it's because their models are wrong. What they're saying doesn't make sense. That's why their computer version of it stops there, because it breaks down. Like what they're saying happened isn't true. And they're not willing to research it any further. They're just saying, this is what happened. That's it. We're not going to look into it anymore. It doesn't add up. And they're just denying a crap ton of evidence. They got rid of the evidence pretty quickly. Not that NIST was involved in that part of it, but it just doesn't make sense, dude. And so I always go back to that of what they're telling us isn't the whole truth. I don't know why it happened. I could even talk about you talked about how there's cameras everywhere. Why are there only like 1 or 2 crappy camera views of the plane hitting the Pentagon? This was the Pentagon. Wasn't there 100 cameras? Why are those the only 2 that were released?
Are you saying that it was a missile that hit it?
I don't know.
A missile that hit
man.
the Pentagon?
There's no.
I mean, they said they found the landing gear down a mile down the road or something like that.
Did they really?
But they were also saying how eyewitnesses, it was flying 150 feet above the ground when it was going in, and that eyewitnesses saw that the wings hitting the light poles and stuff before it hit.
Sure.
And that's probably also why the wings were already kind of damaged, or like that's why it didn't leave a big huge indention in there in a sturdier building. As also like the Pentagon is way sturdier than like
a concrete fortress. Yeah,
I think there's definitely I'm with you. I think there's more to the story than what we know. I think there's a lot of CYA involved.
Sure.
And I think that's mainly the gist of it. I do not, dude, I watched and listened to hours of stuff. When I was working for my dad, I was out there 8 hours testing backflow, listening to podcasts. I watched about 3 hours worth of documentaries on, there was one on Prime, and the beginning part of one on Netflix.
But those, dude, like all of those, right?
No. The one on Prime was the one on Prime was full conspiracy. This guy, he
really?
pretty much was just standing at a podium. This guy was standing on a podium and just talking about.
I saw that one. Yeah,
everything that's and it was hard to watch, but he just kept spitting facts about why. Yeah, but he was spitting facts about why it wasn't why everything wasn't lining up. Which, it makes me think. It does make me think, but I'm just not convinced enough. I just feel that, like there was, people bring up that there was that in 1945, a B-1 bomber crashed into the Empire State Building, and the Empire State Building didn't fall. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's a prop.
It's a bigger
plane.
Concrete.
That's
sure.
It's a concrete building. I mean, it's not the same. Chris, these things were coming in like missiles. So, and they were saying that these buildings were built for plane impact, but I imagine that they weren't thinking that a terrorist was going to be having full throttle. These things were coming in so fast, like full throttle, Chris. They were going full throttle to these buildings. They weren't like, when we lived at off Fifth and we see the airplanes flying in for a landing, those are throttled all the way down. They're already slowing down. They're stopping pretty much in the air. These things were coming in lightning speed into these buildings. I mean, to me, that makes all the sense in the world of the structural damage that it can cause.
I'm not saying
more
that
so
it's
than
not
the
gonna
fire.
take...
I'm not blaming the fire for knocking it down. I think the fucking plane and the impact knocked it down. That's what I think.
Dude, there's
and
two
the fire
things.
helped
so one, so there's well, three things, right? Like these people talk, dude, there's so many things. I can't, it's not even just three. Like, dude, you gotta watch this documentary, man. It is, it's way better than that dude standing at the podium. That was a hard watch. I think I was like fast forwarding. I'm like, can I see a slide at least? Can I see something? There was nothing. But floors like that, right? I mean, for it to fall straight down, that means that there's for it to fall as fast at it as it did, there has to be nothing in its way. No steel bending and then flying off, right? Something had to blow that steel away for it to come. There can't be any resistance for it to fall that way. If there's any resistance at all, it's gonna one side's gonna fall faster and it's gonna topple, and it's gonna fold over on itself instead of just coming down like this. So so that is a huge thing for me. Also, when NIST was pressed over and over again for saying, hey, like what you're saying isn't right, it doesn't make sense, like all these engineers are like, dude, like the math doesn't add up. They're like, yeah, for public safety, we're not going to go into this anymore.
Right.
And it's like, for public safety, why? Like, what does that mean? Why, that doesn't make any sense. So
correct.
It doesn't add up, man. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's off also. I mean, I'm like, there's things I can't explain that I'm like, it still makes me teeter on stuff. Like, are you're not saying that you do believe planes crashed into the building though, right? Are you 100%. Trying to? Okay. Because, there's some people that would go as far as saying that they were CGI'd, those videos that were being fed are fake, their missiles a plane never really crashed into it kind of stuff,
Dude, and thinking back now, I was watching TV when the second plane hit.
Yeah.
And that's not something you could have done in live TV. I mean, there's
in 2001,
planes hit those towers.
But the thing is like right away there was a lot of conspiracy that came out. I mean, like I don't remember if ever like the small amount of internet that we did have back then. Yeah. They did have like people were taking these still frames of the smoke from the towers and it made a demon head, and they're like, see, this is but it was all like obviously photoshopped and stuff. But dumb people were totally biting on it. That was just like, oh, this is a devil. This is, Muslims and the devil attacking us. It's just,
those people are idiots, man. Yeah. So you don't think you think 100% that this was all. There's nothing afoot here at all. There's nothing that they're not telling us that those buildings.
100%. I say there is 100%. There's no bombs in these buildings. 100%. These buildings fell from planes and the aftermath of the explosions. 100%.
So building 7 can fall that way.
Yeah, I do believe so.
From the bottom left-hand corner being destroyed.
The side of there's a quarter of that structure or building destroyed, and they're showing the side of the perfect side of the building. That's the only footage we have is that side of the building.
It's not that. No.
Show me. I want to see. I want to see the building fall from the other angle. Then
you have to watch that document. It's free on Pluto TV, right? 9/11 explosive evidence. They showed photos. They're like, this is the raging fire they're talking about, and they're even able to like you could see the video and they're like circling. They're like, the fire's out. Like it's no longer raging right here. Sure, outside this other window it's still burning, but it's not raging. And it's these 2 floors, right? Dude, hold on.
Chris,
they also
because you can't see fire from the outside, that it's not fucking destroying everything inside, and you can't see it. Just like a bedroom, a whole bedroom can be on fire, and you can have the door shut, and you don't know. You know what I mean? Like it could be just being eaten alive in the middle too. You know what I mean? Especially if it's hitting those backup generators that have the diesel fuel in it.
That steel is intact. Diesel fuel does not burn as hot as jet fuel. Jet fuel, it doesn't even burn hot enough to melt steel.
I'm just saying it's a fuel to make everything else catch on fire.
Sure. And all that's going to make the steel do is it might bend the steel a little bit, right? Dude, they go into all of that here. They show how there's been tests on it. Like, none of it makes sense for it to fall the way that it fell. It fell at free fall speed. That's like you jumping off the top of that building, and it's gonna, you're gonna hit the ground in like 10 seconds. That building fell in 10 seconds.
It doesn't.
It means there's nothing underneath it to stop it.
It's just falling. When that building was I've seen videos of demolition videos, right? and you see all of a sudden you see evidence of explosions going out and then it falling. But there was none in that. Now those videos you showed, windows were breaking, but there was nothing coming out of it. So like, how do you explain that?
Because I couldn't spend 4 days grabbing every little video clip from that show.
But you've seen demolition.
Yeah, but that was in there. They talk about that. You see these ejections coming out, man. You see, like, dude, I'm telling you.
Windows breaking or actual explosions coming
plumes, out? Yeah, explosions coming out. Like, I can't remember what they call them.
As it's falling or before it fell. That's the thing. Those wouldn't happen as it's, like, you would expect things to come out the windows as it's falling because it's falling and things are going and pressure's pushing shit out. So, but you would see those boom, 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 and then the buildings fall. I mean, is it shown that way in that video too?
With the clip that I'm talking about, I'm squirting this cat. Do you see the squirt bottle I have here?
I do.
I have this cat that's super annoying, and she doesn't equate me with the squirt bottle. She thinks it's like all she wants to do is be in my lap and put her mouth inside of my mouth.
Right.
And so I squirt her and she like gets all mad and runs away, and then she'll like just sneak up and jump on me real quick. And
I haven't seen her jump on you yet.
No, well, because I catch her. I'm like watching her. I just squirted her in her butthole. It's awesome. She's gonna leak it everywhere now.
So in those videos, did you see those explosions coming out the windows before the building started collapsing?
No, I don't remember. It was when the building was collapsing.
Yeah,
and it
that makes
was
sense.
The tower videos.
But doesn't that make sense? That things would be coming out the side as it's coming down, and pressure's coming down and it's pushing everything out. Doesn't that make perfect sense?
It does, for sure. I guess, dude. Like 100%, these guys could have laid it out in a way that is and they probably did to prove their point. But it makes sense the way they explain it, and I don't think that I'm an idiot, and I just because they talk about physics, they talk about all this stuff. They're like, why is there evidence of thermite? There should have been, like, you don't get thermite from drywall. Like, you don't. This is something you have to make. It's not in buildings for a reason.
Well, that's the thing. I don't remember seeing melting in any videos I watched. Melting drips of melting beams coming out of anything. I did not see any of that.
They show it, man. They show. I mean, you even talked about how it's like smoldering for a long time, right?
Right.
At least at ground zero, right? And there's this picture of a crane or some kind of bucket thing is come down and pick up this
after
metal,
it's already
and you just
down,
see it pouring. There's clips of these guys talking about how it's
but doesn't
just
that make sense?
It's like a foundry. No,
right.
Because it can't.
Chris,
because they break it down. They're like that. That can't happen.
Yes. Think about our wood fires that we think about blacksmiths that that melt iron and stuff. Or think about the fires we have, and you would say that once that fire is down and all that stuff, all the log, I mean, it's hotter there than it was when the fire was going. I mean, at that point, it's so hot that things are burning that normally don't burn. The cement is burning, the metal's burning, everything else is burning. I mean, like the rock is melting. I mean, like that happens when there's enough fuel for stuff like that, and air and oxygen and asbestos and everything else that's burning in that building. Those are all things that can burn at high temperatures, and plus when it's on top of each other, then it's just smoldering in there. Then it becomes a something you stick your sword in there to melt it and then bang it out, ching, 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 and it gets all melty and stuff. So, I mean,
right, but it doesn't turn liquid. I mean, I'm with you. It's like a forge, is what you're saying, but it doesn't. I don't think it works that way, man. I don't. It just, and they break it down, dude.
So what kind of technology are you thinking about that's happening here? I'm one of those guys
that people just look at me crazy. Go ahead.
What kind of technology are you talking about that
I don't know, man.
That's doing this? I mean, does simple dynamite do that? Does this happen when they do controlled demolitions and these things smolder for weeks and weeks because they did a dynamite?
No.
Like
so they actually,
what would cause this?
They were able to get a piece of steel from Building 7 and analyze it, and it looks. They were saying that like it shouldn't look this way. It looks like Swiss cheese. Like there's holes in it, and you don't get. There's no fire. There's no, like, diesel fuel doesn't burn as hot, right? Like diesel fuel is not even flammable, dude. only once you compress it is it actually flammable, right? Like there's something about it.
At certain temperatures, it is very You can't put a lighter on it and it won't light. But if you put it under extreme heat, it will evaporate, and the evaporations catch fire. Just like if you got crude oil, you get that hot enough, it's going to ignite. You know what I mean? And that's everything has an ignition point. You know, any flammable has an ignition point. Yes, the pressure of diesel pushes it, but it's causing it to evaporate faster, and the evaporation is what catches on fire. So you put something, you put diesel fuel in high heat, if I put a gallon of diesel fuel in the middle of a house fire, that shit's catching. It's catching. Guarantee. Because it's going to start boiling.
I feel like I've seen videos of people. It was like murder scenes where they doused someone in diesel fuel, and they weren't able to they didn't burn.
Because it doesn't evaporate like gas evaporates. Yeah, it doesn't evaporate like gas evaporates.
Like the person was still there. They were able to tell.
Right.
Anyways, dude, I don't know what happened. I don't know, I can't explain it. I will say that when they were analyzing the steel from what little they could get from Building 7, it was, they had evidence of thermite. Like it was, they were even saying it was kind of military grade thermite. And I'm not saying the military was involved in it, but just that it was like this, it's not something you and I could put together, right? It was like fine powder, and they're like, this is, and here's the proof of it. And like, this doesn't, they're like, these chemicals don't exist in this building. It's not something that exists in any building. It's stuff that you have to put together. And then when you put it together, it burns long, it burns hot, and it'll reach these temperatures that'll weaken steel. And they're like, that's the only way you get this